My name is Wesley Morris, and I'm an organizer with the Beloved Community Center. And I met Jorge around 2008. And this was actually my first introduction into organizing and working with Jorge. And so many stories flood my mind, but I just really want to talk about how it was going along with him on some of these speaking engagements. We would go to foster homes. It would be in some neighborhoods. It would be in churches. It would be in college classrooms. But every single time Jorge got the opportunity to speak, you got a feeling that he was speaking for much more than himself. You got a kind of feeling in the room that he was trying to speak for people that were not even in the room or people that were even yet born. And I say that because a part of the film that you may have missed, it might have been clipped out, but you can get a fuller version. He talked about his upbringing and the scars and the knocks that he had to take in his life. And during transitioning from foster home to foster home and losing someone very close to him to HIV/AIDS, and even to what some people would see as tattooed tears and have all these ideas about what they were actually dedicated to family members who had lost their life. I remember Jorge getting in classrooms and speaking to some youth that were experiencing gang culture in a different way than he was trying to work towards. And they would gravitate to him. And he would actually be able to talk from their experience. I couldn't do that necessarily, but he could. I would also just try to speak with him in some of these classrooms that were actually filled with students who were preparing themselves for law enforcement. And he would take their questions. And he would take them in slowly. And I would wonder how he would respond. He would just come right back with his life experience. He wouldn't come back with something that he just thought off of a page of a book. He would come back with his life experience. And I would also like to remind you that even though I walked so closely beside him, and he's one of my best friends, like I said, during this whole 4-year stretch, I would have to really even work with myself, because I would work with them, be in the community, we would organize an event, we would talk to these youth, and one day a newspaper headline would pop up and say, Jorge Cornell, arrested for kidnapping. Almighty Latin King and Queen Nation, arrested for guns. All of these headlines. And I would have to go back the next day and talk to Jorge, like, Jorge, man, like, are you serious, man? I would really have to try to work with myself on coming that close to him. Even when this RICO charge happened, 4 years after working with Jorge, I would still sit to myself sometimes and sit back and say, what actually happened? Like, looking back over those 4 years, it seems like a snap of a finger. But when I saw this film, and I saw myself goofing off with him at the end, in the many ways that we did, he would come to the office someday and say, you know, hey, Joe, man, I got Wesley in my trunk, man, what you gonna give me? You know? Just playing into some of these things that we would see, you know? And to know what he had been through, a bit of his life track, to know what I experienced with him in these classrooms, in this day-to-day life, walking downtown to Italiano's, Elm Street, ordering all the pizzas he could, you know, just for everybody could eat. You know, his excitement about running a campaign, you know, for running for mayor, standing out in front of the courthouse campaigning, not on campus, not, you know, some hold-up building or a club here. He was in the courthouse campaigning, trying to give hope to those that he knew would be in the situation that he was in. I want to leave y'all with this little piece that I was writing for a while. I wrote these couple of poems, but there's these lines that stuck out in my head and relate so well to what I experienced through Jorge and many of the things that he told me. Like I said, I would have to approach him a lot of times after these, you know, things that I would see in the media, or we would be out and I would say, man, that was a little bit harsh, man. You got to scale back a little bit. But we would talk, but he would always end up giving me some advice. And he said, you got to be 5 people sometimes, man. There's somebody inside of you that has to be serious. You're always serious, Wesley. You got to, you know, but then there's somebody that has to have fun. You got to have fun. Then there's somebody that's a family person. You got to be family and friends oriented. Then there's somebody that likes quiet time. You know, we would talk like that. So those experiences are inside of me. And just the lines from the poem that I wrote were, you know, sort of how I would like to try and support Jorge. I would like to really believe that we could work together and can work together and will work together to actually find ways to organize so he can see justice in this case. But, you know, what I wrote down about a couple weeks ago was dream with eyes open, because I did see what I saw, and I did feel what I felt, because you is who you are. Dream with eyes open, because you did see what you saw. And since you saw what you saw, you should now more clearly see who you are. And I don't ever want to forget or act like I didn't see what I saw. And I don't want to forget that I did feel the way that I felt. And now that I know those things, I should most definitely see myself more clearly in terms of how this is going to move forward. Forward together and no steps back is something I've been hearing for a while from the NAACP. But Jorge was a dear friend, a dear brother, a community organizer, a family man, and he was exactly what you saw.
Let's thank Wesley.